Free speech in Australia is now illegal. That's not even me being hyperbolic. I'm being completely accurate. The continued disintegration of Australia's very loose free speech laws continue, ladies and gents. And as of right now, it is illegal in Australia to offend people. That was an announcement by the New South Wales government. They announced it on their Instagram. Yes, that's how we get announcements now from our government. And they said that it is now illegal in New South Wales to publicly stir up hatred against someone because of their race. Now, I know from the outset, that sounds completely fine and good, and you shouldn't stir up hatred against anyone. It goes on to say that this includes someone's color, ethnicity, nationality, descent, or ethno-religious background. What does all that mean? Well, basically it means this. If I am a particular person of a particular religious ethno background and I am upset by something that you've said, that's stirring up hatred against me. And that is illegal. And you can go to jail for it. This law applies to public acts like social media posts, speeches, chants at a rally, or graffiti. To be charged with this offense, it must happen in public, be done intentionally to stir up racial hatred, or would cause a targeted, reasonable person to fear for their safety. Now, I know what you're saying. No, Isaac, this is all about protecting those who feel like everyone's stirring up hatred against them. I understand why you think that, because you are, well, you're trusting. And that's a lovely thing sometimes. But you should not trust the people who we, for some reason, elected to look after our best interests, because our best interests are not at the forefront of their mind. They are there to control the things that we can and cannot say. I know that sounds ridiculous, and even you may think that the current government is not trying to do that at all, but think about this. This will be law in 50 years, 100 years, and we don't know who will be in power then. One of the biggest issues with stirring up hatred, or someone saying that they feel like their safety is under threat, is it's just a personal feeling. When I got taken to the Human Rights Commission over a joke, yeah, that was a real thing that happened in 2023, I basically was taken there because one lady felt so offended by a joke that I told about Aboriginal Australians that she feared for her family and her own life. And so if that had happened now under this law, what I said, because she felt so scared and offended by words that a comedian told on stage, I could go to jail. What the fuck is this shit? The post on social media goes on to say that you can still share your views on religion and politics and other topics as long as it doesn't encourage racial hatred. Yes, I understand that, and I don't think that people should be hateful towards anyone. But free speech, and I'm a free speech absolutist, unless you're saying, hey, everyone, go over and hurt someone, then that's not cool. But if you're just giving your opinion, we should be able to hear that. And we should be able to look at bad speech, horrible speech, mean speech, and go, those people are fucktwits and no one should listen to them, but they should have the power to say it. And then there gets into this whole debate about jokes, and I'm going to get into this in this story because the actual law itself is incredible, and it doesn't protect a lot of these other laws that are similar all over the world protect comedians. This doesn't. This doesn't protect comedians. So if you say something like I say all the time on stage that is horrible and mean and rude and disgusting in polite society, but I'm saying it because it's funny, usually that is protected. But that's not the case anymore. So New South Wales, the state that I live in and the state where this is now law, has enacted the Crimes Amendment to include inciting racial hatred. And it's so important to understand that that wording sounds great, but it's not exactly what it means. So just remember that. I know, because if you look at this from the outside, you're going to think, well, of course we don't want people to incite racial hatred. Absolutely. But that's not what it means. So if you do happen to, in a public act, intentionally incite hatred against a person or group based on race in a way that they would make a reasonable target, reasonably fear harassment, intimidation, violence, or for their safety, penalties may include up to 2 years imprisonment or a fine of $11,000. And one of the biggest shifts that comes with this law is if you were to say something as you were giving a speech somewhere and you said something about a particular racial group or a particular, this is the most hilarious thing, is, okay, I get the racism stuff, but when it comes to things like their religion, like why is religion protected? Why? You believe a certain thing and therefore you must be protected? Why? Can anyone tell me why you need to be protected because of where you were born and therefore what religion you went into? That's crazy to me. And the reason that this is so different now is for the longest time, it was under civil law. Basically, you would go to court and you might be sued or whatever. Now, it is a criminal charge, meaning you could actually be put in a cell, locked up because of this shit. So for you to break this law, here's what the New South Wales prosecutor would need to prove. Number one, it's a public act, a performance, a broadcast, or you post it on social media. This is very similar to the shit that happens in the UK. Number two, it was done intentionally. Did you mean to do it? Number three, it incites hatred against a person or group because of race, color, nationality, descent, or ethno-religious background, which I think, and it's fair to say this, they're talking about people from Israel there. Now, a lot of this law, or these laws, have been put in place to protect Jews from harassment. Now, I don't think that Jews should be harassed, obviously. That would be a ridiculous thing to think. And I don't think Israelis should be harassed. I don't think anyone should be harassed. But to have a law put in place to protect you from words, for me, is insane. Why should you be protected from words when it infringes on other people's ability to live freely? That's crazy. So if you say something that affects someone in that way and you do it in public and you do it intentionally, you might go to prison. So realistically, this is just expanding on laws that were already in place in New South Wales. They also happened in Victoria when it came to symbols that were popularized in the 1940s in Germany. They were sometimes being shown in protests and shit like that by fucking psychos, and they made them illegal. They also made the hand movement illegal, and I think that is ridiculous as well. Why is it illegal to use a hand movement? That's crazy. That should never be illegal. That is just ridiculous. I know it has a lot of power, but if you say one hand movement's illegal, what's stopping them? What stops these people? You know, you give an inch, you take a mile with this shit. This law in the New South Wales government is run by this man, Chris Minns. Now, I met Chris Minns at a UFC event. He was then the opposition leader. He was vying for the premiership of New South Wales at that time. And he's done some good things for New South Wales. And I think he's been pretty level-headed, which is, you know, good for a politician in modern Australia. Unfortunately, he's lost the fucking plot with this shit. Chris Minns said that the framing of this law is a critical response to escalating anti-Semitic incidents and other acts, whatever those other acts are, of racial hatred across the state. He emphasised that such speech and symbolism has no place in New South Wales and underscored the need to uphold multicultural cohesion. Yeah, sure, it's nice to be nice, sure thing, but do we need to be locking people up for things that they say? I argue no. Maybe you disagree. Let me know in the comment section. But I think the vague nature of the wording itself is perhaps the most disastrous. Like when you use words like hatred, intimidation, what does that mean? What is hateful to me may not be hateful to you and vice versa. What intimidates me may not intimidate you because you're a big tough fuck. Do you understand what I'm saying? These words mean different things to different people. And as a comedian, if I say something mean on stage about a particular race or ethnicity or gender or sexuality or whatever, it may not offend one person, but it may offend someone else. It may offend someone's nan or some woke lady or some fucking soy boy prick. Like it might offend them, but it might not offend your average human being. But this pussy over here, they can then go and take this to the police and I can be locked up or you can be locked up because you've said something on social media. That's fucking insane. Is this not fucking insane? Fuck. The more I read this and I look into this law, I just go, what the fuck are we dealing with here? Now, I'd like to say that the next part of this video, I ran past my lawyer. I didn't. I ran it past ChatGPT because it's heaps cheaper. And I asked it, well, what would happen if, you know, another time I had been cancelled when I did a joke about the Holocaust? It was very funny. Anyway, I got in a lot of trouble back then. It was actually my first cancellation. It was in the papers, and the crime reporter was talking about it with the Melbourne papers, and the Times of Israel was talking about it. What would happen if I had said that joke in New South Wales today under these laws? I asked ChatGPT, would I have gotten in trouble? And ChatGPT came back with this. Is it a public act? Yes, of course. It's a comedy show. Is it about a race or ethno-religious group? Yes, the Jews are an ethno-religious group. Would it incite hatred? It said almost certainly. The line not only trivializes but glorifies genocide, which could reasonably be seen as encouraging hatred or contempt. That's not good. Would a reasonable Jewish person fear harassment, intimidation, or violence from this? Very likely. Such a statement, remember, this is not a statement, this is a joke, evokes real-world anti-Semitism violence and would understandably cause fear. The only thing that really saved me was intent. Did I intend to do harm? The prosecution would need to show that the comedian's intent was to stir hatred, not just be shocking. But given the wording, the court could find it is so inherently hateful that the intent is implied. Wow. Isn't that absolutely mad? Now, obviously, I would mount a defense and I would beg all of you for money to mount this defense. But unlike federal law, New South Wales' new law doesn't have a broad artistic, satirical, or public interest exemptions. Right, but this also then goes on to other things, right? Like documentaries. If you keep going with the Jewish thing and you go into Israel, you talk about documentaries in Gaza and shit like that. I mean, who knows? This could be a very telling law. The only explicit exemption is quoting religious texts in genuine religious teaching. And obviously that doesn't apply here, but that is the only exemption. And saying it's just a joke is not a defense at all if the words are reasonably interpreted as glorifying racial extermination. Wow. You know, I think the more you look into humor, the more you go, we shouldn't look into this. Just laugh and fucking move on with it, you pussy. So, the lawyer known as ChatGPT has a verdict. And hypothetically, it says, yes, this comedian would most certainly break New South Wales' new incitement of racial hatred law and could expose the comedian to criminal prosecution over a joke. That's fucked up. Now, there are laws like this all over the world. Europe fucking loves it. In Germany, they have some of the most toughest laws when it comes to stuff like this, and understandably so. That's where the atrocities happen when we're talking about the Jews and World War II. Horrible things happened in Germany and in Poland. You know, if you deny that these events take place, you will go to jail over there, and I think that's also pretty crazy. I just think that you shouldn't be jailed for your beliefs. Maybe I'm a crazy person. I don't know. It's the same in France. They have similar laws. The Public Order Act in the UK criminalises stirring up hatred on the grounds of race, religion, and sexual orientation. Once again, it sounds fine, but in practice, it's not fine at all. In Sweden and Denmark, they prohibit hate speech, but often enforce very lightly, which is good. America, of course, has the First Amendment, and Australia doesn't have that, and it's fucking shameful that it doesn't have that. It's absolutely disgusting. Canada has horrible laws. New Zealand has horrible laws. We are, as a people, pretty fucked currently. And it's only getting worse. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to know what you think about this law, these laws, and why we are seeing such a dramatic increase in these type of laws over the past, few years? I don't think this sort of research is out there, but I'd be fascinated to look at some studies and look at how the implementation of these laws has transpired. I imagine if it was a graph, it would just, sort of look like that, and then boom. Over the past decade or so, there's been an enormous increase in law changes, amendments, and new laws brought forward to protect people from words and actions that don't hurt people. And that is absolutely disgusting, and we should be ashamed as Australian citizens that we've allowed this to happen. The previous government did similar things here in this country. Both sides of government in this country don't give a shit about the little guy. That's fucked. Ladies and gentlemen, be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. My dick stinks. Tout au revoir. Bye-bye.